D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick 1025. The game, Adam Vingan, David Janes, Big Joe Dubin was kind enough to stick around for an extra segment. We're still without Willie Donick and Derek Mason. Willie Donick expected to join the program later this hour, live from Boston, where the Predators take on the Bruins tonight to kick off a 3-game road trip. Puck drop at 6, pregame at 5, right here on 1025 The Game. And Joe, I feel terrible for Derek Mason. A lot of people in our area are still suffering from the winter storm that came through this region over the weekend. Derek Mason has been without power since early Sunday morning. He lives on a dead end, and there are downed power lines on his street, which are preventing him from leaving. So even if he wanted to leave, he can't. So I feel really bad
right?
for Derek. I'm thinking about him. I know he's doing okay. He has a generator. He's staying warm, but every morning I'm checking on him. I'm like, Derek, do you have power yet? Do you have power yet? Are you okay? He's hanging in there. He's a tough guy, as we know. Our thoughts are with Derek Mason and all of you who continue to deal with the after effects of this storm.
Do we need to send a search party after Derek? Have we done that?
We have not. We have not. I have considered driving over there and getting my car as close to his house as I can. I don't know how far down the street the down power lines are.
Right.
But I am thinking of driving over there and, as you said, executing a rescue mission
right.
to get Derek out of the house.
The last search party I was part of was the Donner party, and that didn't end well. So I don't do search parties, but if he could send up a little flare to where I know he is, we can go get Derek Mason and save him. And that'd be a great story, saving Derek Mason. But I know it's 130,000 without power in the greater Nashville area, I think. I don't know where NES's reach ends and begins and all that. So, but we'll get through it. We always do. So check on your neighbors. That's kind of been our message the last couple of days.
Yes, indeed. Be neighborly. Check on your neighbors. Check on your loved ones. Make sure everybody is doing okay. Trevor Maddich, ESPN analyst, will join us in roughly 20 minutes. Predators GM Barry Trotz will join us for his weekly chat at 4 p.m. instead of the usual 5 p.m. because we are off the air an hour earlier today for Predators pregame featuring Chase McCabe. So let us know how you're doing, 615-737-1025. And Joe, the news of the day as it relates to the Tennessee Titans, they could have, and I emphasize that word, could have their offensive coordinator. It has been reported that Brian Daboll, the ex-head coach of the New York Giants, will be the Titans' next offensive coordinator as long as he doesn't get the Raiders' head coaching gig. Daboll has a strong background in developing quarterbacks, most notably Josh Allen, so that would seem to bode well for Cam Ward. The combination of Daboll as the offensive head coach and Robert Saleh as the defensive play caller is intriguing on paper. So how do you feel about the anticipated hiring of Brian Daboll?
I absolutely love it. I think the tide is turning a little bit for this franchise. I think you got a great head coach in Saleh. You got an offensive coordinator that people love. He wasn't the best for the Giants. A lot of factors involved there, like Saleh with the Jets, but you got a guy, the most talked about kind of guy, OC, that's still left out there. And look, some national people have been putting this together. Saleh and Daboll equals success, and we got to see it here. But you got a guy who come in here who's worked in multiple different programs with different coaches. I love it, man. And it feels like, again, they're getting things correct over there at Ascension St. Thomas. Amy, if you're part of this, I'm going to say congrats. Borganti doing the work. I think if you're a Titans fan, your football team feels so much better today than it did 2 weeks ago or at the end of the season. Now, go out and draft Reuben Bain and get a good get a good free agent receiver in here. Your football team just feels better. I like this.
As ESPN notes, Daboll has a history of working with successful quarterbacks such as Tom Brady, Brett Favre, Josh Allen, and most recently, Jackson Dart. Daboll also coached Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa in 2017, his lone season at Alabama. ESPN also notes that Brian Daboll likes to use RPOs, run pass options. Ward had a lot of success at Miami using RPOs. The Giants, according to ESPN, were 4th in the NFL using RPOs last year. You groaned at the sound of RPOs.
I am not a fan. How did Cam Ward get hurt? Designated run play for. I am not a fan of designated run plays for quarterbacks. Now, if you scramble and you get injured, that's another thing. How did Bo Nix break his ankle? Design design run play.
That's something else entirely.
Right? So design run play. I'm not a fan of putting quarterbacks in harm's way. Let Cam Ward deliver the ball down the field, and he got injured on a designed run play. I'm not a fan of that. Let him stand in the pocket, throw down to his weapons, and get it done. And so that's my thing. I'll stay on that. But Daboll could come in here and develop him as a quarterback. And look here, Adam. Here's the main thing. Cam Ward's going to be listening to one guy. With Callahan, he had Callahan, Bo Hardigree, Nick Holtz did nothing. I don't know why that guy was on the staff. They called him a coordinator. He only think coordinator is probably lunch. That's it. So now you got Daboll talking to Cam Ward. It's much easier for Cam Ward. This is a win-win for Cam Ward going forward.
My question is, how long should the Titans be willing to wait on Daboll? The first shoe dropped this morning when the Buffalo Bills announced, or it was reported, that the Buffalo Bills are promoting Joe Brady to be their next head coach to replace Sean McDermott. Yep. And Brian Daboll was in the running for that position. Brian Daboll has also interviewed with the Las Vegas Raiders for their head coaching position. The Raiders themselves said on Monday they conducted second interviews with Joe Brady, who's, of course, now unavailable, Broncos offensive pass game coordinator / quarterbacks coach Davis Webb, and Brian Daboll. So I would assume that the Raiders head coaching job is coming down to either Daboll or Davis Webb. And I don't know how long it's going to take the Raiders to make that decision. But part of me wonders, although it sounds like Daboll told Robert Saleh, look, if I don't get a head coaching job, I'm yours. But he's still in the running for a head coaching job. They've interviewed other OC candidates. They interviewed Cliff Kingsbury, for example, and Adam Stenavich yesterday. But I want to see how long it's going to take for the Raiders to make a decision, because what you don't want to happen, Joe, is you don't want the Raiders to drag their feet here. Daboll ultimately gets hired by the Raiders, and then the Titans are scrambling to find their offensive coordinator.
So that's my enthusiasm is tempered until he signs on the dotted line. And look, I'm all about a guy wanting an opportunity to be a head coach. If it's the Raiders, good for him. But until he signed and is at that press conference or whatever, I'll be like, ugh. So until that, I'm like, okay. They got a plan. I know they got a plan in place over there. Robert Saleh came in and had his plan and blew Amy Adams away, and Borgans and everybody was excited about that. So hopefully he's got a plan B, C, D, and E. What happens if Daboll does it? But according Paul Kuharsky reported today that Daboll is in Nashville, direct from a flight from Vegas. So we will see what happens. And until he does sign, I'll be a little. I mean, it's the Titans, right? We got some cynicism in us from the last couple of years. See what goes on. So we'll just sit here and wait.
One texter says we should send Taylor Lewan for Derek Mason. I think Taylor Lewan could handle a search.
That would mean Taylor Lewan's got to put somebody else first before his own self. So I don't see that happening.
Is there a beef between the two of you that I'm unaware of?
Him. I thought he was a jackass when he played here to go in the locker room and talk to him. Not a fan of him. He can do whatever he wants. Just not a fan.
Kevin on our text line says, still doing well here in Florida, 53 and sunny. Kevin, respectfully, shut up.
Now, isn't there an outdoor game, the Lightning playing?
Yes, the Tampa Bay Lightning are playing in a Stadium Series game this weekend against the Boston Bruins, who the Predators are playing tonight. Yes, Sunday, February 1st at Raymond James Stadium, home of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, yes, 2 outdoor games in the NHL in Florida, because the Winter Classic was in Miami between the Rangers and the Panthers, and now the Stadium Series game in Tampa. So it's a whole new world, Joe. Outdoor hockey in Florida.
They said the weather this weekend is low 50s. Might get down to the 40s by the time the puck drop. That's what I read earlier.
Yeah.
So some parts of Central Florida are hitting the 30s. So that's what you get. You get outdoor hockey. They take the weather with you.
Kevin also adds, but seriously, God bless y'all in Tennessee without power in that cold. Get power soon. Andrew says, so if Cam Ward hands the ball off to the running back and accidentally breaks his finger in the process, would you be against all running plays too, Big Joe?
That's so stupid. That's such a stupid take. If you get hurt in the act of scrambling, I get that. But this is a designed run. Do you want your franchise quarterback out on the edge getting just beat up by Myles Garrett? Nobody wants that. Stop doing those plays. Stop. How did Cam Ward get his shoulder hurt?
It was a designed run in the red zone.
Yep. Got in. Yeah, he scored. That's great. Your quarterback's done for a while. Stop doing those plays.
There weren't too many of those, if I recall correctly, for Cam Ward.
I don't want
this
any.
Season. Zero.
I don't want any. Why did Peyton Manning never get hurt? Because he didn't run. He scrambled. He threw the ball out of bounds. Brady, same way. Threw the ball down. Get rid of the ball. Don't have design running plays. I'm not a fan of those.
But as I was watching, I hear what you're saying. But as I was watching specifically the AFC Championship game over the weekend, Drake May made some huge plays with his legs. I think he earned 6 first downs over the course of the game on the ground. And Willie, Derek, and I have talked about wanting Cam Ward to scramble more. We saw some of it in the later portion of the season.
Right.
I think he's capable of doing it. I'm not going as far as to say that Cam Ward can scramble like Patrick Mahomes or Drake May or some of those other quarterbacks who are associated with that. Josh Allen, for example.
Sure.
But I would like to see him implement more of that into his game. I do hear what you're saying and your concerns with designed runs from the quarterback.
I know
position.
it sounds weird, like he's going to get hurt scrambling. I get that. All right. That's a scramble that happens. That's a spur of the moment kind of thing. But I'm never been a fan of getting your quarterback out without any blocking in harm's way and getting blasted. I'm not a fan of those. I just haven't been. And look, and I know it sounds weird too, because running is running and no matter what you're doing, but I don't like your quarterback on design plays, especially when he's got all this promise and he's your guy. And you saw what Brandon Allen did, which was nothing. Just have it, throw the ball, man. Get rid of the ball. If you got to scramble, but no more design run plays. Please, no more.
So to your point about Bo Nix, here's an interesting quote from Sean Payton from earlier today. Apparently, Bo Nix had a pre-existing ankle condition that made a fracture inevitable. He said, quote, what was found was a condition that was predisposed. They always find a little more when they go in. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. When you look at the play and you're trying to evaluate it, the operating surgeon said this was going to happen sooner than later. Now you go about the rehab, proper orthotics, all those things. So
that is so weird.
That's an interesting wrinkle in all of this. So we'll see what happens with Bo Nix. Bo Nix, quite good at throwing on the run as well. I do want to touch on something that you and Chase mentioned at the end of your show, because it happened to me on the drive here. A word of advice for those of you who are able to venture out and drive. Please, please, please clear off the snow and ice from the roof of your car. Please do it. As I was driving here, I was behind a pickup truck.
Oh, no.
And a huge slab of ice. I saw it start to teeter a little bit, and it fell on the highway in front of me. Fortunately, there wasn't anyone close behind me, so I was able to brake and avoid it. But please, as you're getting ready to drive, make sure that there's no snow or ice on the top of your car. That's quite the hazard.
You know what's funny? When that happens, when it goes in the air, you're like, oh, no, because it's like a projectile, huge. You're like, please don't hit anybody, and then it hits the ground. To further your point here, we talk about the red lights, right, that are out. 4-way stops. They are 4-way stops. We'll figure it out. It's like a 4-way stop. Nobody seems to know that it's a 4-way stop when the red light's out. They come flying, zooming by. So you go to a red light that's out, proceed with caution. I think we're all smart to realize that, but holy hell, man, this is difficult. So just the patience.
I'm always a bit worried when I'm driving for certain things. I don't know if you are a horror movie fan, Joe.
Yeah.
But the opening scene of Final Destination 2 with the log truck that causes the traffic. Every time I'm driving behind anything, whether it's a log truck or a transporter or anything that's carrying something that looks like it could fall, I immediately move to the other lane. I don't want to be behind. I do not want to be behind that after what happened at the start. I think that was Final Destination 2. There are
what are we
so
up to
many.
Now? 5 of those?
5,
6 of them?
6.
But they're all good, though.
You know those horror movie franchises, they have way too many sequels. there are like 12 Saw movies.
I will
as far
tell
as
you,
I
in
know.
the first one, when they get off the plane and the plane explodes when it's going up in the air, it's one of those moments you're like, what the hell is going on? Then you watch the whole thing, it's like, this is crazy, man. But I think there's 5 of them, maybe 6 Final Destinations.
So far, there's still a lot to happen, obviously, Joe. We haven't even hit free agency, the draft, all of those things. But it sounds like between the hiring of Robert Saleh and the expected hiring of Brian Daboll as offensive coordinator, you are feeling optimistic about the Tennessee Titans so far this offseason.
It sounds like they're getting some things correct. I mean, I wanted Saleh to get the job anyway because I think they needed a hard ass to come in here. I think the Callahan experiment was a disaster with his BS summer camp rules with the pool noodles, slapping everybody on the ass and getting points and 3-legged sack races and all that. Get done. I mean, look, it's football. It's violence. Go practice football, not having a day camp. So I thought they got that right. He's kind of like Mike Vrabel 1.5. I like that. Now you get Daboll, who's proven himself as a great play caller. He did wonders with Josh Allen. You just see things starting to turn a little bit with his franchise. I'm like, go get Reuben Bain, get a good receiver, fill in some spots. You're competitive again. I'm not saying you're going to win the division, but be competitive. And now I think some things are turning that way. And again, if you're part of this, of getting Saleh and getting Daboll in here, whatever, good job. Now get out of the way and let the guys do the rest.
The one thing about the NFL versus other major pro sports is that going from worst to first is incredibly doable. It happens nearly every year in the NFL. We're noticing it right now with the New England Patriots. The Jacksonville Jaguars turned things around in a year. The Chicago Bears turned around things in a year. We've seen the Houston Texans in recent memory turn things around in a year.
There's one more.
So
Carolina Panthers.
Yes. Well, I don't put the Panthers in the same category. That Panthers team
made the playoffs.
They did make the playoffs, but as someone who watches the NFC South closely, it still is the NFC South.
Right.
I know the division titles still count the same, and it is impressive what the Panthers were able to do, but I don't hold them in the same regard. I don't put them in the same tier as the turnarounds we saw in New England, in Chicago, and Jacksonville this past season. But your point is well taken.
Yeah, I mean, this team, the Panthers in 24 were awful. And then they came back this year. They had some big wins on the road, turn around a little bit, and now you look at them. They get to the playoffs, almost beat the Rams. Stafford's just a machine and got the job done. But there are examples that you could turn this around quickly and get it done. And Patriots 4-13 the last 2 years, and I get it. They had the easiest schedule since 2007. But as we talked about, you can only beat the teams that are on your schedule. And look, in the playoffs, beat the Chargers, the Texans on the road, beat the Broncos. They're 9-0 on the road. No team's ever done that. And now in the Super Bowl, it can happen. So I've been one of the guys like, it'll take forever. But now that you got Saleh, you can get Daboll in here and get it going. Work with Cam. That's your job. Get a number 1 receiver in here. I'm telling you, man, your football team's a whole lot better today than it was 3 weeks ago.
Joe, thank you for sticking around for an extra segment. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Your reaction to Brian Daboll, easy for me to say. I was going to say being hired. He hasn't been hired yet. It's contingent on what happens with the Raiders head coaching opening. But your thoughts on Brian Daboll expected to be hired as the Titans offensive coordinator. 615-737-1025. Trevor Maddich will join us coming up next. We'll get his thoughts on the expected hiring of Daboll, the Super Bowl matchup between the Patriots and the Seahawks, and more. All of that with Trevor Maddich coming up next. 615-737-1025. Vanderbilt men's basketball tonight takes on Kentucky at Memorial Gym with an 8 p.m. tip-off, and the pregame show starts at 7:30 right here, or not right here, but on our family of networks, 94.9 The Fan. D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 1025 The Game. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home in the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. I believe we have Willie Donick now. Are you there, Willie?
I am. Hello, Adam.
Hello. We will catch up in just a moment. Before we do, let's go to our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com and welcome in our friend Trevor Maddich, who is brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Hi, Trevor. How are you?
I'm good. I'm warm. So that's a blessing. I will take that any day.
Yes, absolutely. So we were just discussing the expected hiring of Brian Daboll as the Titans offensive coordinator. The reports are it's contingent on what happens with the Raiders head coaching opening, which Daboll has interviewed for a couple of times. But under the premise that Daboll is headed to Tennessee, how do you like the fit between he and Cam Ward offensively?
I am cautiously thrilled. Does that make any sense at all? Because I think if you look at Daboll's best performances as an offensive coach, you've got to go back to Buffalo, where he helped to initiate Josh Allen into the NFL and take him from just a raw quarterback from the University of Wyoming, a transfer from a junior college to get to the University of Wyoming, who then became one of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL. And most of that was Josh, but part of that was the shepherding and the stewarding of the coach. Part of that was putting Allen into the kind of a scheme where he could excel, and then coaching him up to not give him too much, but to trust him to do as much as he could. So all those things had a lot to do with Josh Allen's development in his early NFL years, and Brian Daboll was coaching him through all that. So that makes me thrilled. What makes me cautiously thrilled is that in his first year as a head coach at the Giants, he was fantastic, but then everything kind of fell off. And so you saw kind of some of the weaknesses of his coaching style and of his scheme. He had a bunch of injuries there. They couldn't get the quarterback situation right in terms of injuries and personnel and stuff like that. And we see between Buffalo and the Giants that Brian Daboll is aggressive throwing the ball down the field. He will mix up tempos, mix up personnel. He has all kinds of ways to get mismatches and attack the defense. And when he's got an outstanding quarterback who's healthy behind an offensive line who can get him protection, and with receivers that can get down the field and finish plays on those deep air yard plays, you've seen Brian Daboll's offense excel. But when the quarterback situation is not right, when the offensive line is banged up, when the receivers aren't getting the job done, it tends to falter more than other offensive schemes and styles, because Daboll's style is aggressive, getting the ball deep down the field. So with Cam Ward, you've got the ability to throw that ball deep very well. You've got good young pieces on the offensive line that need to come together and protect better. But theoretically, if they can get the receiver pieces together, Daboll should be able to maximize everything and utilize Cam Ward's natural aggression. And so we'll see if that works out. We'll see if the personnel can come together.
Trevor, we have our Super Bowl matchup, Patriots versus Seahawks, and I want to ask you about Seattle specifically. The Seahawks sort of went against the grain by hiring Mike Macdonald, a young defensive coordinator, at a time when the young play-calling offensive coordinator is in fashion. So based on Macdonald's success, do you think we will start seeing a shift towards teams hiring young defensive coaches as head coaches in the NFL?
Adam, it's a copycat league, right? And whether or not it's the smart thing to do, if it's the temporarily successful thing to do, other teams will mimic it. So I can see that happening. But at the same time, I think just going for a coach who's got a good defensive scheme and is a good defensive designer and play caller is not the best way to find a head coach. As a head coach, you lose a lot of your ability to do what made you a great coordinator because you're doing so many other things. And unless your name is Andy Reid, there's a very small group of people that are offensive or defensive coordinators, play callers, et cetera, who continue that greatness as a head coach. Then there's some diminishing of what you did to get you to that head coaching spot. And so I think what you need is to make sure you focus on vision and leadership and accountability with the head coach. The Titans didn't have that when they hired Brian Callahan. And so they had a guy that they thought was a great quarterback developer, but he fell short on the leadership and accountability side. And so I think with McDonald in Seattle, you've got a guy that does both, but more than just being a really smart defensive coordinator and play caller elevated to head coach, you've got a guy who can lead men, a guy who's a football man that the program in the locker room, in the coaching offices, everywhere else can follow. Then you've got his good defensive stuff. So I think as other teams look at what Seattle has done, if they start thinking, yeah, we need a defensive coach like Seattle does, well, if they think that way, they're going to fail. But if they make sure they've got the most important things for a head coach first, and then he's a great defensive coach, sure, I think guys like McDonald can open the door for more defensive-minded head coaches, even though we live in a time in the NFL where offense is king.
Trevor, one more for me before I hand it off to Willie. I do want to ask you a college football question, a story that I was following incredibly closely. Darian Mensah and Duke have settled their dispute, and Mensah is now expected to leave Duke and transfer to Miami. But still, a university took the extraordinary step of suing its quarterback to prevent him from transferring. How do you see this lawsuit, which again has been settled, but how do you see this dispute impacting the enforcement of NIL deals moving forward?
Adam, that's such a great thing to look at because from a standpoint of Duke, the university, the program, you're talking about winning the battle, losing the war. Yes, Darian Mensah had a contract. Yes, Duke has the right to enforce that contract. But do they really want a quarterback that doesn't want to be there? Do they really want to tell future transfers that, yeah, they can sign a contract with Duke, but if they decide they don't like it there and they want to leave, Duke's going to force them to stay. Force them to stay. Now, in the NFL, that's normal. I mean, that's just par for the course. When you've got a contract, that's it. Nothing you can do about it. But in college, it's new enough that I think guys would be really upset about that. And at least in the short to medium term, Duke would cut off their nose to spite their face if they would have forced Mensah to stay. And I haven't checked at the most recent thing, but the quarterback at Washington had a similar situation where he signed a deal to stay with Washington. And then when Kiffin went to LSU, he said that, okay, I'm going to enter the portal now. And Washington kind of forced him to stay. And so he decided, okay, yeah, well, I'll stay. Well, that just creates a big, ugly, muddy mess. And so I think that I'm glad Duke found a way to let Mensah do what Mensah wanted to do. I think it's better for the program and for the locker room, by the way, long term. But, it's just one of those ugly things that will eventually have to become a standard procedure paradigm like it is in the NFL, because before it becomes that in college, it will be an emotional bunch of turmoil like it was with Duke and with the University of Washington.
Trevor Matich is with us. We're talking football with him. So, Trevor, here's just another general football question that I think is on a lot of people's minds, especially after the game on Sunday in Denver. Is the whole idea that the whole mindset is so normal now to go for it on 4th and 1, 4th and 2, sometimes even longer when you're inside the 20, and almost regardless now of where you are in the game. But do you think what happened on Sunday will have people rethinking it with Denver kind of missing a chance in a game that ended up being really tight and low scoring to go up by 10?
I think that it won't. I think that this was one of those situations where the coach and his understanding of his personnel in the situation overtook what the analytics might have said. I think a lot of people give Sean Payton a lot of grief because they lost that game by 3 points and they went for it on 4th and 1 from the 14-yard line going in. But I think when you're looking at Payton, he knows that Jarrett Stidham is not a great quarterback. He knows that Stidham has not had a lot of success in the NFL. As a matter of fact, he's had a lot of real anti-success. And Jarrett Stidham hadn't thrown a pass in a regular season game since the 2023 season. And now here he is having to start in the AFC Championship game. And so I think that the idea from Sean Payton, the Denver coach, was that if they've got the ball at 4th and 1 on the 14-yard line, they could kick a field goal there, but they really need a touchdown because they really can't count on getting down into that kind of a position for the rest of the game. I mean, they got there from a long pass. And so if you are Peyton, you're thinking, okay, we have to take advantage of it now because we might not get back. And sure, it's 4th and 1, and we might end up with no points in a game where points are at a premium. But at the same time, we can't afford to have a quarterback duel between our guy and Drake May. And so we're going to go for it. We're going to be aggressive. I thought it was the right move at the time. Whether or not it was from an analytics standpoint, I don't know. But from a standpoint of not trusting Jarrett Stidham to drive the field very many times in that game against the Patriots defense, I thought it was the right call. And I think most coaches making that decision going forward will recognize that.
I'm up here in Boston, and obviously the town is going crazy over the Patriots. And Drake May has had such a meteoric rise in such a short period of time. What do you think it is about Drake May that separates him from so many of the other young quarterbacks that are, growing at lesser rates?
You know what, Willie? He's got a combination of skill and common sense and just brashness. You put those three together, and you've got a guy that can do stuff. I mean, you've got quarterbacks that'll try to fit the ball into windows that some other quarterbacks would be able to. But this particular quarterback can't. So his confidence is greater than his skill level. You see that a lot, and those guys wash out pretty quickly. Then you've got guys that have the skill, but they are tentative. And so they could fit it into these windows, but they don't really want to because they're afraid. What you've got with Drake May is a combination of the best of those qualities. May has the ability to be able to hit those windows, but he's also got the confidence to be able to let it rip and sling it into those windows. And then he's got the common sense to not put it at risk more than he has to. Now, I think that's a combination that I think has helped him tremendously in the NFL. But if it weren't for his accuracy, then all the rest of it would have turned into a rash of interceptions, and we would not be talking about him this way.
Trevor, let's circle back and end where we started on Daboll. I was looking over his resume, and it's pretty interesting. I don't think I realized just how many different places he's been in front of some really interesting, franchises. I mean, for example, Alabama, right before he got to the Bills. Of course, Bill Belichick way back with the Patriots. So he's been in a lot of interesting spots. How valuable is a variety of backdrops for a coach when he's trying to build a resume?
I think it's huge, Willie, because he's got different coaches that have different styles that he can draw from and learn from and then put his own stamp on things. I mean, he's been on the staff of some of the most successful coaches, college and NFL, of his generation. And so he's seen how to do it right in a way that has success. And then he says, okay, now when I go forward as a head coach, I like this, this, and this that Saban did or that Belichick did or that whoever did. But I don't like that and that. And I'm going to change that and put my personality on it going this way. If he only had one coach that he coached for, then he wouldn't have as much variety to be able to draw from to create his own recipe. So I think it's super valuable that he has had that kind of background. And really from a standpoint of Cam Ward, we've always talked about how this offseason is the same as last offseason after the draft and last season. The whole direction of the franchise is to develop Cam Ward. And we know that Brian Daboll has had a successful experience developing Josh Allen coming out of college. And I think that is a wonderful thing should he become the offensive coordinator. Now, we may only have him here for 1 year. He may go off and be a head coach in the next cycle if he doesn't become the head coach of the Raiders in this cycle. But at the same time, I think that, having that kind of a casserole of successful coaches to draw from would only help Cam Ward, and that's really what this is all about.
Trevor Matich has been our guest on D-Mates, Vingan and Donick. He joins us every Tuesday, and he is brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor, great stuff as always. Stay warm, stay safe. We'll catch up next week.
All right, thanks, guys.
615-737-1025. By the way, as we were chatting with Trevor, Jordan Schultz put this out, quote, breaking! The Titans have received a commitment from Brian Daboll to become their OC per multiple sources. He's in Nashville now to sign. Daboll has a strong affinity for quarterback Cam Ward, and the two will now officially be paired together. Apparently, Jelly Roll is also an NFL insider now because he tweeted, official. The Titans have signed Brian Daboll as offensive coordinator per at Jelly Roll 615. So what can't Jelly Roll do? He wrestles, he sings, he breaks news. He is multifaceted. Man, oh man. We all should aspire to be Jelly Roll. 615-737-1025. We will take your reaction to Daboll reportedly signing on the dotted line to be the Titans' next offensive coordinator. We'll also catch up with Willie Donick. We did not have a chance to talk with Willie yesterday. There's quite a bit of snow in Boston, Massachusetts, so we'll see how Willie's doing when we come back as well. 615-737-1025. But before we do that, I do have a pair of tickets to give away. If you want a pair of tickets to see the Nashville Hoop Showdown between Ohio State and Virginia on Saturday, February 14th at Bridgestone Arena, be caller number 3 right now. It's 615-737-1025. Caller number 3 will win a pair of tickets to see the Nashville Hoop Showdown between Ohio State and Virginia at Bridgestone Arena on Saturday, February 14th. Again, that number, 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick 1025. The game. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan here with you. Always a pleasure to chat with our friend Trevor Maddich. It's always a pleasure to chat as well with Predators GM Barry Trotz, who will join us at the top of the hour. The Predators are back in action tonight in Boston, taking on the Bruins. Puck drop at 6, pregame at 5, right here on 1025 The Game. First, Willie, I just want you to detail for us the travel from Nashville to Boston with the Predators, because when you landed in Boston yesterday, you sent us a video of the tarmac. If I am not mistaken, Boston had more than 2 feet of snow. So how was the travel? How's everything up there?
What I've been told is 18 inches, but I don't know if that was just the last 24 to 36 hours. They certainly, even, they're used to plenty up here, but even the locals here, like, that is a lot of snow. So we were fortunate, I think. Got to shout out Brandon Walker from our staff for the Predators, being able to navigate it, because he had to make sure everybody could get to the airport. Then he had to figure out how to get out of Nashville, which everybody was still playing catch up with all of the freezing, and then to get into Boston. So that was a complicated equation. But fortunately, we landed right before the next wave of snow came in last night. I mean, right before, because by the time I showed you, by the time we had parked and gotten our bags, it was coming down in a hurry. So they've just been blanketed. But they're so good up here at managing it, and there's not issues with ice like there is back in Nashville. So there are these enormous snowbanks along the streets just piled up, 6-8 feet high, so that people can walk on the sidewalk or drive. So they've managed it really well, and it's anything but a panic, but it is something to see.
Yes, we're doing okay here as best as we can. We're still thinking of our friend Derek Mason, who is literally I don't mean to laugh because it is unfortunate, but it just goes to show you how awful the storm has been. Derek is literally trapped at home. No power, can't leave because of down power lines on the street. He's at a dead end, so he can't find any alternate route to get out of his house. So we're thinking about Derek, Willie. We are thinking about our teammate Derek Mason as he continues to gut this out, just like a lot of people are around the region.
As of now, to my knowledge, too, I have no power at my house as well. So that's a problem for my pets and not for me at this point. But my cousin is picking up the slack for me over on the east side. So hopefully it gets squared away soon. I know there's still a lot of people that are waiting patiently to get it back online. So our thoughts are back with everybody in Nashville up here as we traverse the Northeast here for the next few days. 3-game road trip for the Preds.
Willie, I like what the Titans are doing with their coaching staff, not just because of their credentials, but because of the fact that they're also bald. And we are a big fan. We are big fans of other bald men on this program. So Robert Saleh, he's got no hair. Brian Daboll, he's got no hair. I think the Titans have hired some other coaches who also don't have hair. So we are endorsing this hairless Titans coaching staff. But let me ask you about Brian Daboll. It's been reported that he has signed. It's not been made official, but it looks like it's heading in that direction. You touched on it with Trevor, but Daboll's resume is quite interesting. For example, I didn't realize that he went to Alabama for a year, but he has worked with a lot of highly touted quarterbacks. Of course, what put Daboll on the map is his work with Josh Allen in Buffalo before becoming the head coach of the New York Giants. So how do you like the combination of Robert Saleh as head coach and Brian Daboll as offensive coordinator on paper?
You never know about these things, but it looks like you've got guys that at the end of the day, if they don't do well, it's not that they're not qualified. I mean, they've done a lot of good things for long periods of time in their coaching career. The Alabama thing was interesting to me. He went there for 1 year as the offensive coordinator, and he had both Jalen Hurts and Tua backing him up. And that was the year that they beat Georgia, where they famously went to Tua at halftime when they were struggling. And it was the coming out party for him, and that great dramatic win over Georgia that went down to the very last play, the game-winning play. So people may not realize that he was there. He wasn't just there in the Nick Saban, let's rehab some coaches that are down and out program, which he's done many times, but he went there to be the offensive coordinator. He got it done with the highest standard. So that's a big feather in his cap, a big notch on his belt. But the other thing that I like about it, Adam, is I think, based on what we can tell, Daboll's repertoire over the years is a pretty good match with what they want to do with Cam, from what I've read and what I've been told. He runs a lot of RPOs, which Cam is very comfortable with. In fact, this past year with the Giants, they were in the top 5 in running RPOs. Of course, with Jackson Dart, that was a fit for him. They ran a lot out of the shotgun. Certainly Cam is ready for that. And so I do think the jump from the offense that Cam Ward was running to what he's going to be running with Daboll is not too high. I think it will fit generally with what his skill set is.
One texter says, Cam Ward is at my barbershop shaving his head right now in support of the hires. Hey,
okay,
we are all behind shaving your head on this program. We are huge endorsers of shaving your head on this
whatever
program.
Works.
Whatever
gets you dubs, whatever you feel good about.
One texter says, and we've talked about this before, one texter says, if Daboll does become the OC, which, again, it appears he will be, and he does well, and the Titans improve and make the playoffs after year 2 under Daboll, then he will leave for a head coaching job. Then a new offensive coordinator will be needed. The same texter says, I would like to see what he can do with Cam if he does become the OC. We've talked about this. That's a tomorrow problem. If Brian Daboll does well for the Titans and helps Cam Ward improve, and he gets a lot of attention, and he's back in the head coaching interview cycle next year, that is a positive reflection on the Titans for hiring Brian Daboll and him getting the most out of Cam Ward. That means that Cam Ward vastly improved if Brian Daboll leaves after 1 year. So I understand the idea. Hey, you want continuity. You don't want an offensive coordinator who's going to leave after 1 year to take a head coaching gig. But to me, Willie, that's a tomorrow problem. Let's get Brian Daboll in here and see if he can improve Cam Ward. And if Cam Ward improves and Daboll gets a head coaching job somewhere, it means he accomplished his job with the Titans.
I completely agree. I don't think you let your decision-making process be affected by that factor. That's putting the cart before the horse. You can't control what happens in the future. And you're right. That would only mean that they made a big jump and a good impact in the 1 year. So you take that. The other thing that I was thinking too is, in theory, Daboll being the Giants coach last year and preparing for the draft, I would imagine he studied Cam Ward very, very extensively. So he comes in not blind at all to what Cam Ward does well and has done well going back a ways. I would imagine he dissected him because, remember, the Giants reportedly were willing to give out a pretty good deal to trade for the first pick, which presumably would have been Cam Ward. So I'm sure he not only studied Jackson Dart, the guy he ended up getting and did a pretty good job with, but also Ward. So I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. And, of course, you never know until you get him out there.
I wasn't going to remind you of that because I know that's a sore subject with you, the Titans not taking the Giants trade offer, but you mentioned it. So, yeah, but you're right. You're right. I mean, Brian Daboll presumably could have been coaching Cam Ward with the New York Giants last season, and now he will get his opportunity this season. It is expected that the Titans will hire Brian Daboll as their offensive coordinator to go along with Robert Saleh as head coach. Robert Saleh, by the way, expected to finally address reporters for the first time on Thursday afternoon. It was supposed to be tomorrow afternoon, but it was pushed back a day. So Thursday afternoon is when Robert Saleh will hold his introductory news conference. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll continue to take your thoughts on Brian Daboll as the Titans' next offensive coordinator. 615-737-1025. But coming up next, Predators GM Barry Trotz will join the program. The Predators are back in action tonight to start a 3-game road trip against the Boston Bruins. We'll catch up with our friend Barry Trotz coming up next, 737-1025. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
All right, let's say the latest from Loan Pronto. Low mortgage rates are continuing into 2026. Right now, they've got fixed rate mortgages with APRs as low as 4.89%. And that continues to be the lowest in years. So if you're stuck in a 6% loan or something higher, you could drop your payment month by month big time with a refi. So get on the horn and don't waste any more time. It's such an easy process compared to what it used to be, thanks to Loan Pronto and their rapid equity loan. I mean, they can move you through fast, and you can close in as little as 2 weeks, maybe skip the next 2 house payments. Call 615-499-5780 or visit loanpronto.com and get the free instant home appraisal. So that's whether you want to just refi or if you need a home equity loan. You want to get cash out of your home's equity, they can do that as well. In fact, you could double up. One homeowner recently pulled $250,000 out of his home's equity, paid off big credit card bills and car loans, cut monthly expenses by $2,000 per month. That is smart moving. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, APR for well-qualified buyers, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick 1025. The Game. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, David Janes here with you. The Nashville Predators are back in action in just a couple of hours, taking on the Boston Bruins. 6 p.m. Central puck drop, 5 p.m. pregame, as always, right here on 1025 The Game. And joining us now, as he does every Tuesday on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, is Predators General Manager Barry Trotz. Hi, Barry. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We're doing well. Thank you for joining us as always. So let's start with Steven Stamkos, who continues to score at a high clip over the past couple of months. 21 goals in his past 29 games since late November. But I want you, if you will, to take us back to around that time before this hot streak started for Steven Stamkos. He had just 4 goals in his first 22 games. What sort of conversations did you and Andrew Burnett have with Stamkos around that time that led to this resurgence we're seeing from him?
Well, I think, a lot of times you want players to adjust their games. You look at Steven over the course of his career, especially the last, let's say 10, 12 years, he's been a certain style in Tampa Bay. Got to certain spots, and guys like Cooch and Point and that got him the puck, and he uses his great asset of shooting the puck and scoring goals, which is hardest thing to do. I think he adjusted his game. I think he talked with Andrew in terms of how he could get inside the dots a little bit more, get a few greasy goals, if you will. To get the ball rolling, because one of the things with goal scorers, if you just go to like the Stamkos or Ovi spot, they know you're there. They know you're there all the time. So I think what Andrews have got a very good offensive mind. Talked about finding other ways to generate scoring chances, and if you're getting scoring chances, your ability to score goals are going to come out. So I think he moved to got Steven to move around a little bit. Find different spots, get inside the dots, and getting into those scoring areas, moving into the slot area, overloading, doing things like that. And he started having some success, and I think it's just carried over. And then having a little bit of chemistry with Hall and Bunting helped. And then Andrew's done a wonderful job of moving Stammer with O'Reilly, and then back with Holla and double shifting them here. But I think more than anything, Steven is skating. He's playing a really complete game. I think he's enjoying playing hockey in Nashville now. And it shows. It shows in his game. His work ethic has been tremendous. I think his back check, his two-way hockey game is as good as I've seen it in a number of years. So, good on the coaching staff, good on Steven to continue to adjust and work through those things. And, he's on a real heater. He's on I think like a 63 goal pace right now, based on, his last little while here. So hopefully he can keep it going for us.
Barry, after the loss to Utah over the weekend, Ryan O'Reilly called his recent performance, garbage. His word. Earlier this season, when things weren't going well, he said he's had one good year in his career, which we all know is not even close to being remotely true. I know that players are accustomed to being accountable, but have you been around a player who is harder on himself than Ryan O'Reilly? And why do you think that is?
Well, I think I've been around some guys that you look at some of the guys that have coached you, in the past, especially I'll just say just Predators, the Pecorenes and the Shea Webbers and the Mike Fishers and people like that were tremendously competitive and took a big a chunk of the team and the results on their shoulders. I think Ryan does that as a pro. He puts so much time and effort into his game. He leaves it all on the line every game, and when he doesn't feel he's up to his standard or the team standard, he is hard on himself, and that's a great quality as long as he can get it back on the rails. And I think he's such a good pro that he's been able to do that, and it's a great trait to have. when you can get it back on the rails. If you can't, then it's something that can consume you. And I think he's one of those players that after a game, and he has a bad game. Anybody who's watched us play, especially in probably the last 2 years, when he has a bad game, usually there's not a lot of people around us that have been stepping up. So I think, when number 90's on top of his game, Nashville Predators have a chance to win every night because he's one of the best two-way centers in the National Hockey League. And, I say when we ride 90 a lot for success, it's, he's going to have an off game here and there, but really he's one of the reasons one of the huge reasons that we're in this race at all. And he's been our, one of our great leaders, especially up front.
To that point, Barry, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. Is it safe to assume that Ryan O'Reilly will not be traded before the deadline?
No, I think everything has to be on the table. As I said, I have not had any conversations with Ryan on any of his situation. If there's I have to listen to all offers. If there's an offer that blows my mind a bit, then I have to listen. But at the same time, we're not in the playoffs, and that's the bottom line. So, as I said earlier in the year, nothing's off the table, and it shouldn't be. We'll be fair and understanding, but we'll also be understanding that we're trying to build something here and build it for a new core, build it for the future, and get it running back to the standard that we're a threat every year. And it's going to take some time, patience, all that, but nothing's off the table on anybody.
Barry Trotz is with us. Barry, before I hand it off to Willie about the trade deadline, there are 11 games left before the actual NHL trade deadline on March 6th, but there are only, by my count, 4 games left before the Olympic roster freeze. For those who don't know, players can't be traded between February 4th and February 22nd. So how much influence will these next 4 games have on your decision making?
Well, I don't think they're going to have much at all, really. I think it's clear to me where we have to go with our team, and so I don't think it's going to change a whole lot. As I say, we're not in the playoffs right now. It's going to be a good indicator next couple of games, but I have a really good sense of where we are in the bigger scheme.
Barry Trotz is with us, general manager for the Nashville Predators. Barry, a philosophical conversation we had last night. Yeah, it might be a stretch for you to imagine Hal Gill and I getting philosophical, but he was looking at we were watching the Bruins and the Rangers last night preparing, but he was talking about the trend that seems like we see now, where shots on goal are a little bit down. Maybe they're a little bit better now at tracking than they used to be of what actually is going to be on goal and what's not. They're more of a stickler for it, so that's part of the reason. But it seems like some teams are passing up good shots and going away from the old trend of, hey, just put everything on net. Are you seeing that trend in the game?
Yeah, it's been something that has been around for. It really sort of took off in, I'll say, around 2015, 2014, in those areas where analytics, they talked about quality of shot, percentage of shots that go across there's different terms, but a lot of the teams are using the Royal Road, which is seam passes at different levels. From the blue line, the top of the circles, and the hash marks, and then below the hash marks, anything that goes lateral. And especially if there's a screen in front, the percentage of the shot goes up tremendously. Just a point shot with a screen is like 3%, and I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. It's been a while since I've been down in the coaching room, but it's you take 100 shots from the point, maybe 3 will go in. If you have a lateral from say the hash marks through what we call the middle of the ice, through the slot area to the other dot, it goes up to 15 and 18 and 20%, depending on the level of where the shot is taken. So teams are looking for more for quality because the goaltending is so good. People are blocking more shots. So that's been happening over a course of time. You look at teams like Carolina, for instance, they believe in the volume. They sling shots. They're all about shots, screen, recovery, pressure all over the ice, and they continue to do that through a course of 60 minutes. And some teams, a good example is Utah, is a little more of a lateral team. They look for a lot of those lateral passes. So every team has their own style. I think there's a trend in the playoffs where you'll see teams get more screening shots, trying to get volume, because there's not much time. There's not much space during the playoffs. There's a lot less. So those longer plays that take to develop are going to be a little bit more difficult. For instance, if people are watching the game tonight, I got a chance to watch the Rangers in Boston last night. There's a couple. You watch the Pasternak line. Anytime Pasternak, for instance, rolls up the wall, there's someone coming down backside, and he's throwing a lateral, 60-foot pass through traffic and seams, and he's such a great passer that guys like Morgan Geekie are coming in and getting some really quality chances. So look for that tonight. I'm sure I know our coaches have scouted that and identified that. Now the players got to identify that at full speed, but those are things that have happened over the course of evolution of time. Everybody's looking to score. Goalies using more deceptive tactics before you shoot. You see so many guys, and Philip Forsberg, the Stamkoses, they'll come down and look, show shot and not even look. And Kucherov's the best. If Kucherov's looking at you as maybe a person who's going to be receiving the pass, he's not passing it to you. It's the people that he's not looking at are going to have to be ready for the pass. So there's so much deception for the goalies to read, stick deception, and also body deception in terms of presentation. All that goes into trying to create offense.
So Barry, with that said, I think there's a lot. You just mentioned how good the goaltending is, but if people are looking, as they maybe have been trained to look for years and years, just at save percentage, I know that it gets discussed a lot with UC Saros, right? His save percentage is .896, but that's about average of what the goalies are right now. So I guess you as an evaluator, regardless of the goalie, when we used to remember routinely people at 915, 920, kind of on average, the average has dropped. Yeah. So how does that change how you evaluate a goalie?
Well, what has happened over the course of time, and I would say from the early 2000s, you saw regular goaltending that had 920, 925 on the top teams. And so what happened is that technology in terms of the sticks, goal scorers started saying, okay, how do we create more offense? And what happened was the goaltending was so far ahead of the goal scorers and even the coaching techniques. And from 2000 all the way to 2014, and now it keeps evolving, the goal scoring and the technologies and the skill level in the league have increased, where the goaltending has sort of it has gotten better, but not at the same rate as the offense and the skill at the other positions, at the forward and the defense positions now. So, you look at goals expected, above expected is a really good indicator. I look at Saros, for instance. That's generally a pretty good stat for him. But he's made timely saves. If you look at our games when we've won our hockey games, it's when he's made the save. When the game, we haven't been a great starting team, so we're trailing the game. So he's have to make some stops when we're trailing in the game to keep us within striking distance, and he's done that, and our team has been able to come back. So you look at your goaltenders, you can evaluate them purely on stats, which I like to look at goals above expected is one that is a real key one for me. The zone one save percentage, things like that are really, really good indicators of your goaltender sort of bailing you out. And the Juice has generally been very, very good there. And then just the plain, the eye, watching the goaltender move, being able to, move laterally and pick up pucks that you don't think you would get to, and the timely saves. Those are for me, just as a general manager, you look at those and don't get too wrapped up in the stats, because no goalie is good if your defense isn't taking away the unpredictable plays behind you. So when you have steady defense in front of you, what you usually will have is a better save percentage for your goaltender.
Speaking of defense, you lost a key guy with Nick Hague for the next little bit here, and you guys have made the decision to bring up Andreas Englund. Tell us about that decision, Barry, and what you're maybe trying to get from him and the D between now and the break.
Well, I think with Nick, we really liked where he was going. He started really taking the next step for us. You could see him starting to grow, and then unfortunately got hurt. And then obviously we looked at these last 3 games of what we needed. We're coming into Boston. Boston is a big, heavy, pounding team. Obviously, losing the profile of Nick Hague is a little bit troublesome. You got Ryan Ufko, who's been by far our best defenseman offensively, and in Milwaukee, he's a AHL All-Star, and really he was a player that we knew that probably deserves to come up next, but the profile just didn't fit going into the set with Boston, the Islanders. We just felt that we needed a little heavier profile. We've got enough of the skating guys that we have there. So, I'm sure going to see Ryan very shortly. But if it was, Blankenberg or Yost out, Ufko would have been for sure the call up. But I think it was more profile for the opposition on this trip.
Predators GM Barry Trotz has been our guest on D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick. He joins us every Tuesday during hockey season. Barry, as always, thank you so much for your time. Stay warm. We'll catch up next week.
All right, take care, guys.
615-737-1025. A lot to digest there from Barry Trotz. Willie and I will react to it on the other side. You can as well. 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025 the game. The Predators have indeed shipped up to Boston. They take on the Bruins tonight at 6 p.m. Pregame with Chase McCabe at the top of the hour, as always, right here on 1025 the game. Willie, yet another insightful conversation with Predators GM Barry Trotz. A lot to cover there. I thought his answer to your question about UC Saros and goaltending in general was fascinating.
I think that's a big thing around the league. And I think when you're trying to figure out who's doing well in goal for the various teams, there's a lot more variables maybe than there used to be. There's certain teams that value certain things, play a certain way that's going to contribute to the performance numbers of a goalie. Like how wide open are you going to play? What's your defensive style? And then there's the goal saved above expected that you and I have started to look for a lot more in the recent seasons, Adam. But there's no question that the one thing that I would want people to know out of that conversation is when you look at a goalie save percentage, it's not the same as looking at it even 5 years ago, but especially 10 years ago when, as you've pointed out before, Adam, I think the average save percentage of just any random regular goalie, the league average, was something like 915 not that long ago, 910 to 915. Now, if you have 910 to 915, you're really, really doing well because the average has dipped down below 90. It's at 897 last I think I checked. And even that only tells you part of the story with, what is your environment? What's the created environment in front of your goalie? What kind of quality are you giving up? So it's much more layered than it used to be.
To your point, the average save percentage in the NHL as of now is 897. 10 years ago, the average save percentage in the NHL was 915. So think about that. From 915.
So think about an ERA. Like if you're a pitcher and you're used to a great pitcher, like, I don't know, pick one that you've watched for a long time, Greg Maddux or Tom Glavine, who routinely be better than the league average. A good year, they're in the low twos or the mid twos. And you're like, well, if it's under 3, that's really good. And we're conditioned to see that. But remember also during the steroid era, that's maybe what separated the greatest pitchers, right? They could still get it done. But the league ERA for a long time, for a while in there at the height of the steroid era was closer to 5, right? So if you had a 4 ERA back then, that was pretty good relative to the league. So you do have to follow the trends that go on, the cycles, and it'll probably cycle back the other way someday.
So if you look at UC Saros's traditional goaltending numbers, goals against average and save percentage, he has a 304 goals against average and 895 save percentage. On paper, those don't look good. I've seen people point this out on our text line that it has been more than a calendar year since UC Saros last recorded a shutout. By my quick math, it was January 3rd of last year against Vancouver, the last time UC Saros recorded a shutout, which continues the conversation about whether Barry Trotz was right or wrong about signing UC Saros to the maximum length contract that he did in 2024. But again, it's about keeping things in context. It's about looking under the surface. We've brought up this number a couple of times, Willie, on the show. It's a stat that is tracked called goalie steals, and it sounds self-explanatory. The number of games that a goaltender has proven to be the key reason for that team's win. UC Saros has stolen 9 games for the Predators this season. That is second most in the NHL, behind only Ilya Sorokin with the Islanders, who has 11, and should win the Vezina Trophy and could win the MVP. That's how good Sorokin has been this season, and UC Saros is right behind him with 9 steals. Now, you bring this up, Willie, and you're right. The Predators have played a lot of one-goal games, which raises the number of steals that UC Saros has had this season. But to bring back something that Barry Trotz said in our chat with him earlier this hour, UC Saros has made timely saves a lot more this season than I think he did last season when the game is within one and you need your goaltender to make that one stop to preserve the lead, UC Saros has made that stop a lot more frequently. This is anecdotal, but he's made that stop a lot more frequently than he has in recent years.
I think that's fair to say. And I would say when we're having this discussion, I'm not sitting here telling you that UC Saros is having a Vezina kind of year, because it has been interesting to watch. Because when he's been great, he has shown the ability to steal games and win a lot of close games with, as Barry Trotz said, a lot of timely saves. But that being said, there have been some it's sort of trends with the team. When they go bad, it seems like the roof caves in. And I think Saturday, it's trying to be fair, I don't think that was a great UC Saros game. So he's had, I don't know, I would say somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 now games where it just hasn't gone well, and his numbers get completely buried and skewed. A lot more games, I think he has done a great job to keep his team in games and steal games. So it's a little bit of feast or famine, but better on that end. I also think, and Adam, I'd be curious to hear what you say. Remember, we talked about last year how the environment in front of him defensively completely got out of hand. They did not defend well. They've done better this year, but I still wouldn't say this is a shutdown defensive team anywhere close to it.
I would agree with that. It has improved, but overall, it's still not the greatest environment for a goaltender. But UC Saros is a lightning rod around here because of, for example, his lack of playoff success and how his traditional numbers have declined in recent years. But again, it's about looking at the entire picture. I agree with you, Willie. UC Saros hasn't been Vezina Trophy finalist caliber this season, and we've seen those numbers dip down a little bit. But overall, I still think he's worth being in that conversation, but he will show his mettle throughout the rest of the season if the Predators can find a way to make it to the playoffs. So before we let you go, because you will have to get ready for the broadcast coming up at 6 o'clock, a big road trip for the Predators this week. It starts in Boston tonight before the Predators head off to New Jersey to take on the Devils on Thursday and the New York Islanders on Saturday at UBS Arena. Let's set up this game. As you mentioned, the Bruins played last night. They lost 4-3 in overtime to the Rangers at Madison Square Garden. So as you get ready for this matchup, what are you watching for? What should fans be watching for tonight?
I think the key tonight is to keep in mind that this has been an interesting stretch here for the Predators. 2 weeks ago, they played, and you highlighted it before it even started, right? You had 3 perennial, at least recent perennial contenders in a row. The Oilers, the Avalanche, and Vegas, 2 of the 3 on the road. And they won 2 out of 3 against those teams. Last week, they played sort of a less ballyhooed trio of teams: Buffalo, Utah, and Ottawa. All 3 of those teams are very different, but they're young and they're sort of they hope to be on the rise. Now, Ottawa, speaking of goalies, they've had horrible goaltending, which has sunk their season. They would probably do anything to have somebody like UC Saros playing goalie. So that's what you have to consider. But Buffalo and Utah have been among the best teams in the league for the last month or so. And you may not realize that if you're not watching them. And then tonight, you're seeing another team that's playing at the top of their game. Boston is 8-1-1 in their last 10. They've played really well. They don't have some of the same names that you're used to over the years. They still have got a couple of the guys that are familiar foes, like David Pastrnak, who's incredible. You heard Barry Trotz talking about him, how creative he is at making things happen offensively. But they've gone through a stretch now where they're playing teams that are playing really well. So this is a really good gauge of how good the Predators are.
You mentioned the loss of Nick Hague to another injury. He is listed as week to week. So how do you expect the Predators defense to handle his absence?
Well, I do think that Hague, week by week, was starting to find his place a little bit better. And I go back to the first year of Ryan McDonough for the Predators, where it took him 3/4 of the first season before he really started to find his place, and then was much, much better. Was really, really good the second year. Much more what they thought they were trading for. Just a tremendous, tough-nosed defender, winner. He did it all. Brady Shea, I think, was the same. He went through the same process last year. He's been a little bit better. The numbers with Roman Yossi, we were looking at those earlier. They've been pretty encouraging, and they've gone back to those two. So we'll see what happens with Shea going forward. Haig was going through that same process. But all that being said, not having Haig, I do think has exposed some things. When you get down into the second and third pair, I think it's fair to say Justin Barron still hasn't found his groove since getting back in there. Adam Wilsby, just got back in after being injured. He's still very young. He's capable. But you heard Barry Trotz say it. He brought up Andreas Englund for one reason, really, and that's he's got some size. And against the Bruins, who've got guys like Tanner Jeannot and Sean Corrali, they got some big, strong guys that
Nikita
can make it happen
Zadorov
the
on the back end.
Zadorov, right? And we'll see if he's able to play. He wasn't able to play last night, but yeah, that's another example. The Bruins love to get those big, strong guys in there. So that to me is a big thing to look for this week is, can the Predators play well defensively?
By the way, Willie, Jared in Spring Hill says, please relay this to Willie. He looks fresh, and I love his fit, classing it up on the road. So some
well, if it weren't
shout out.
Night, I would be disappointing him, I'm sure.
Actually, before we let you go quickly, Paul Kaharski of paulkaharski.com reports done deal. Brian Daboll has signed. Raiders element then would seem dead. So it appears all but certain that Brian Daboll will be the next offensive coordinator of the Tennessee Titans. And Willie, you and I will dig more into that tomorrow. You will be joining me from Newark, New Jersey tomorrow, where the Predators will take on the Devils on Thursday. Have a great call. We'll talk to you tomorrow. 615-737-1025. Again, Paul Kaharski of paulkaharski.com reports it's a done deal. Brian Daboll has signed on to be the Titans' next offensive coordinator. We will take your reaction to that. 615-737-1025. Also, a new report regarding the Football Hall of Fame and somebody who was not inducted, somewhat surprisingly, as a first ballot Hall of Famer. We'll do that next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025 The Game. Adam Vingan and David Janes here with you. Willie Donick off to prepare for the broadcast tonight. Predators versus Bruins to kick off a 3-game road trip. Pre-game starts with Chase McCabe at the top of the hour. Puck drop here at 6 p.m. Central on 1025 The Game. Willie will join me for the whole show tomorrow. We'll see about Derek Mason. I feel terrible for Derek if you missed it. Derek's been without power since early Sunday morning, just like many of you. And because of downed power lines on his street, and he lives on a dead end, he can't leave. So I'm wondering if I should just go to his neighborhood, David, drive as close to his house as I can, and save him. We need Derek Mason
Honestly,
back.
I need Derek on these airways, man. I just need it, man. I miss him.
We miss him. We hope
so
he's
much.
doing okay. He's got a generator, so he's got some heat, but I just feel really bad for Derek and all of you out there who are still suffering from the after effects of this terrible storm that swept through our region over the weekend. I know that the power companies are doing all they can to get all of you back online. NES at the moment says there are still 116,730 outages. So if you are one of those who is still without power, stay safe, stay warm. For those of you who do have power, be neighborly, check on your loved ones, check on your neighbors, check on your friends. Make sure they're staying warm because it continues to be frigid out there in our region and will continue to do, and that will continue to be the case for the next few days, I think. The big news of the day for the Tennessee Titans, they have agreed to terms with Brian Daboll to be their offensive coordinator. Brian Daboll interviewed for a few head coaching positions in Buffalo and Las Vegas. He did not get the job in Buffalo. That goes to Joe Brady. So instead of staying in contention for the Raiders job, he is here, according to Paul Kaharski. He has signed, so he will be the Titans' next offensive coordinator. Willie and I will get more into that tomorrow because on paper, it looks like a great fit for Cam Ward. We talked to Trevor Maddich about this. Brian Daboll has an extensive history developing quarterbacks, most notably Josh Allen. A lot of people credit Daboll for getting Josh Allen to where he is now. That's why Daboll became the head coach of the New York Giants in the first place, fired by the Giants during the season, but now with the Tennessee Titans as their offensive coordinator. So we will take your reaction to that at 615-737-1025. Mike on our text line says, you should send the 1025 The Game helicopter to pick up Derek Mason. I am unaware of said helicopter. Maybe we can get a drone. I don't know if it would be strong enough.
We gotta check the budget. We gotta check the budget for that.
Yes,
we know Bud has a plane, but we don't want to send a plane out there. But
no,
we'll send a search party. I got a big old truck. We can do this. We can figure it out.
Maybe we can find a drone strong enough to airlift Derek Mason out of his home and over those down power lines. But
I can reach out to Nick Frazier. He probably has something like that. Yes, that's something.
Frazier would have a drone.
He really would, especially one strong enough to lift someone.
Yes, up. That Nick Frazier, he's a special guy. But here is a fascinating story that was just published on ESPN.com from Don Van Natta Jr. and Seth Wickersham. Bill Belichick is not a first ballot Hall of Famer. According to Van Natta Jr. and Wickersham, in voting earlier this month, Belichick fell short of the 40 out of 50 votes needed for induction to the Pro Football Hall of Fame during his first year of eligibility. Belichick received a call from a Hall representative last Friday afternoon with the news that he won't be inducted into the Hall in Canton, Ohio this summer. Several sources who spoke with the coach over the weekend described Belichick as quote-unquote puzzled and disappointed by his inability to secure support from at least 80% of Hall committee members. The story continues. 6 Super Bowls isn't enough, Belichick asked an associate, referring to the championships he won as head coach of the New England Patriots. He won 2 more as defensive coordinator of the New York Giants. To another associate, he said, what does a guy have to do? Another source familiar with Belichick's thinking said, quote, politics kept him out. He doesn't believe this is a reflection on his accomplishments. I do wonder, David, if all of the stuff that's gone on at the University of North Carolina has played into this. I know that the stuff that's gone on at UNC is independent of what he accomplished in the NFL, but between the Jordan Hudson stuff and the fact that that program was a colossal failure this past season, not that that upset me in the slightest, but I do wonder if that played an impact in Belichick not being a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I feel like that it has to be. You would think it would have to be. I was actually thinking about the last couple of years, obviously, when you see Brady win the title with Tampa Bay and then just the colossal failure that came from the Patriots with, trying to get Cam Newton and Mac Jones and all of that, that also might add. But still, you would think, though, 6 Super Bowls as a head coach and 2 as a defensive coordinator, you would think that should be enough to make you a Hall of Famer, correct? I mean, I don't know. And obviously, politics and how people feel about a coach definitely helps out on the wrong way. Because again, Terrell Owens was a bad figure with the media side. So I guess that could be possible, but you would think that winning 8 Super Bowls combined would counteract the bad publicity with the media, you think?
So quickly, on an unrelated topic, we will get back to Belichick. One texter says, I'm a lineman contracting for NES. Tell everyone, please stay patient. Hopefully everything will be back to normal by this Sunday at the latest. We're working 14 to 16 hours straight. I'm sending this while we're waiting for our next job. First of all, texter, thank you so much for everything you're doing to get everybody back online. But as he said, be patient. Hopefully everything will be back to normal by this Sunday. We thank you and every other person who is out there trying to restore power to our city.
Yeah, shout out to linemen. They're the backbone for us.
Well, here's more on Belichick later in this story. Multiple sources told ESPN that Spygate and Deflategate came up in deliberations among voters. A voter who spoke on condition of anonymity said that Polian, I assume Bill Polian, an ardent Kraft supporter and former GM of the Bills and Colts, so yes, Bill Polian, a chief Patriots rival during their dynasty, told some voters he believed Belichick should, quote unquote, wait a year before induction as penance for Spygate. So
wow.
There's that.
So would that also mean that Brady might have to have the same thing too? Because he was also part of it.
Yeah, that's a good question. I wonder if that does come up. Also, we do have an encouraging update from our friend Derek Mason. He said, I'm on tomorrow. They came out to move wires, and I'm now headed to a hotel.
Woo!
So thank goodness Derek Mason is okay. He will join us tomorrow. So glad to hear that. Kevin says, Derek Mason is just fine. He's drinking, is it Disaronno? I don't know what that is. Is that wine? Eating mozzarella sticks and chicken wings and watching Lifetime with the fam. He's this is it Disaronno? I don't know how to pronounce that. It's a liqueur. I'm not a big drinker, so pardon me, Kevin. Cameron says the guy treated everyone around him like bleep for 25 years, meaning Belichick. They sent a message. I love it. And I'm sure Cameron is not alone in thinking that way. But I mean, look, Bill Belichick, 8 Super Bowls as a coach, 6 as a head coach, not being a first ballot Hall of Famer to the Pro Football Hall of Fame is a bit shocking. But it's interesting here that this report suggests that Bill Polian tried to get people to make Belichick wait a year as penance for Spygate, which negatively affected the Indianapolis Colts when Polian was the GM of that team. So we shall see what happens there. But again, the big news of the day, Brian Daboll, the next OC of the Titans. Skyler on our text line says, if Daboll gets a head coaching job next year, then that means the Titans got 7 to 9 wins and Ward looks good. Also, Saleh is tied in with the Shanahan and LaFleur tree, so we should be confident that Saleh can bring in the next man up as offensive coordinator. So we talked about this earlier. I understand those of you who might be concerned about Brian Daboll coming here for a year, helping out Cam Ward, and bolting for a head coaching job. That's a tomorrow problem. So right now, if Brian Daboll is helping Cam Ward reach his potential and have a spectacular second season in the NFL, if Brian Daboll gets another head coaching job, it's because he helped Cam Ward develop the way that people want Cam Ward to develop as the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. So I understand the hesitation there. You want an offensive coordinator who's going to stick by Cam Ward for several years so that you have that continuity and all of those things. But Brian Daboll, I think, again, on paper, makes a lot of sense as the Titans' next offensive coordinator. I'm glad that Derek Mason is going to be on the show tomorrow because he can break this down for us. He can tell us exactly how Brian Daboll can help Cam Ward reach his potential. But yes, so glad to hear that Derek Mason has escaped his house. He's heading to a hotel. He'll be on the show tomorrow. That warms my heart, David, which is what we need right now because I am freezing.
I am. Yeah, we're just trying to just stay warm, and so it helps. It's good to get some help from D Mace telling us a good thing right now. We need some good news.
We need some good news. So the gang will be all together tomorrow. Now we will be in 3 different places. David, you and I will be here. Willie Donick will be in Newark, New Jersey, and Derek Mason will be remote from his hotel room. But we will all be together tomorrow for the first time this week. Looking forward to that.
The Best Bald Show will be back together.
Yes, absolutely. By the way, Frazier quickly says, I don't have a drone, but I can help assist as part of the rescue party for Derek Mason. Nick, your services are no longer needed because Derek has been saved.
We do appreciate you reaching out, though. And
we do. We love you, Frazier. That'll do it for us today. Predators pregame with Chase McCabe coming up at the top of the hour. Predators versus Bruins. Puck drop at 6. Coverage with Max Hers and Hal Gill, as always, right here on 102.5 The Game on behalf of our friend, Derek Mason. Be loved. Love on your people. Stay safe. Stay warm. Be neighborly. We won't forget about you, so do not forget about us. We'll be all together tomorrow for the first time this week, tomorrow at 3 p.m. Peace.